Hello, everybody. How y'all doing today? This is the Natural State of Matters. I'm Justin Bailey. This is my friend Eric Ryan.
Glad to be co-hosting. Thanks to be here.
What's going on?
Man, I'll tell you what's going on. Kind of a big deal. I might be one of the few people on this earth crazy enough to try to start my own business and have a baby all at the same time.
And do a podcast.
Yeah, and do a podcast. My wife thinks it's probably as stupid of an idea as most of you out there.
I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody thinks it's awesome. I haven't had one negative comment.
You think they're going to tell you that, Bailey?
Yeah.
They some of them would. Your wife would.
Anonymous
Has she
people on
told
the
you?
internet.
No.
By the way, if you like our videos, please subscribe.
Yeah, now at this point we know that we have to ask, we need some of you to subscribe. We don't need it. I don't even know why.
My wife isn't even subscribing.
My wife is definitely not subscribing. Because she loves me and she wants to keep loving me. So she feels probably if she listens to the podcast, maybe she won't love me as much.
You know what I really want, though, is I feel like we have really interesting conversations. It interests me, and that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about things that me and you find enjoyable. I don't really care what anybody else finds enjoyable. But I would like to find people out there that are listening that are like, yeah. Or no. And have them comment a little bit.
Yeah, I'd like it's cool enough. Again, I think that we do this is fun for me because we have great conversations. There's no way around it. We haven't even. This podcast is kind of a tribute. These even are the best conversations we've had. This is more of a tribute so far. Hopefully we'll get there again, but it'd be so much better if we had a few more interactive. I've kind of tossed around the idea what if we did the next one, and I don't know if we can still put it on YouTube, but what if we did the next one on Facebook Live so people could be, rebuttaling or, throwing in input while we're doing it.
Oh.
Just shooting from the hip here.
Light bulb.
I hope my son watches this someday. He'll love that part, but good times.
Have we ever thought of the repercussions of that? Everything that I'm saying, I say to my daughter every day.
Have you thought of the repercussions of that? It's crazy that we're qualified to be parents. You
talking about starting your business. Is that not terrifying?
Oh yeah, it's equally as terrifying as you would think it would be, except you don't have the reality of it being real, and so yeah, it's definitely. Is
the exciting phase still going for you?
Yeah.
Or are you like, God, I'm not excited at all about it anymore?
It's a little bit like a wave pool. I've got the excitement and the fear just kind of washing against each other, and I think that's hopefully what will make me successful because I'm scared enough to be responsible and care enough, to want it to succeed. So. Yeah, very much still excited about it. It's a cool feeling to kind of, the idea of that I'm going to make my own living. Maybe I'll eat out of the same can of beans for a little while, but eventually down the road, hopefully there'll be a payoff. It's I guess the closest feeling I had to this was when I helped when Kevin opened 21, he hired me shortly after, and it was kind of a cool feeling just because I wasn't working for a corporate restaurant, didn't have advertising. It was just a real small, tight-knit group. And I felt like we were kind of making our own destiny. You know what I mean? It was either going to do good based on about 6 people's performances, or it was going to do bad because we weren't doing our job right.
Do you feel like, are you prepared for failure? Or you know what I'm saying? Or do some people go into it and they're like, it's gonna work. And I'm not trying to be negative.
No, it's hilarious you say that
because that's the first thing I'd be like, it's going against me already. Every day I would be like, well, that was nice run. I had going there.
Wish I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
No, it's so funny that you say that on so many levels for a couple reasons. For one, I I was riding down the road with my mom the other day, and she said that because my mom had her own dog grooming business, and my mom was like, I never even knew that failure was an option, and that.
But she did really well with it for a long time.
She did, yeah. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have the wrong mindset. Mm-hmm. But it appalled me that she said that. I'm like, you have to be ready. What in this? Which that's been my mom's whole life. Maybe she hasn't always been ready, but Yeah, that's a very real option. Like, it's kind of one of those deals. It's a real roll of the dice. It's a bit of a gamble where I'm going to do it and put myself out there. I hope I do well with it, and if I don't, it'll kind of put me back a bit, and I'll have to catch up. But it is what it is. I think I was ahead.
But
to
it's
start
not going to end your life.
Not at all. And that's what I think. I think
it's not like you can't. I mean, me and you both, we've never been above any job we've ever done.
But it feels that way, though. You know what I mean? Like, especially for somebody like me, like I'm always conscientious of where I'm at.
Do you think it would be better to try and fail, or to try, do really good, and then eventually fail? I think a lot of people get in that where they do pretty good, kind of like our podcast, and then it just drops off. Like falling off a cliff.
6, yeah.
But no, I'm serious. Seriously, like some people get to where they can't admit failure to the point they'll do anything to keep people from thinking they're failing. And hey, I'm not talking about you. I'm just I'm just talking about the idea of it. You know,
that idea is a great idea. It's something I learned about in business class. They call it escalation of commitment. It's something like. You already feel like, hey, I've already put so much into this. I'm gonna keep
like the business end of keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, like I'm gonna keep maxing out these credit cards because eventually, like did you ever watch Parks and Recreation? What was the show that Aziz or what was the
off
company?
Camera? We're way better at these movie references. We can't ever seem to get
he's like, hey, don't forget to take an iPad on your way out.
Yeah,
he's like handing out iPads.
Yeah.
Like.
Everything's super extravagant.
Repeat customer right there. Yeah. They didn't buy anything. Well, but they'll come back. So hopefully I'll think it out a little smarter than that. But it's interesting, man. I'm really stressed, but hopefully I have the temperament to just let it fly. My uncle actually kind of said a few things that were kind of encouraging words. My uncle used to live here in Arkansas. He lives down in San Antonio now. He's a good old Arkansas boy, but they started a meat processing plant sometime back in the 80s, I believe, 70s, 80s, something like that, I think. And he talked about how they had a rough go at it. They were, he used that term, eating out of the same can of beans for a long time. And, and they're, it didn't succeed. They say, they think that if the banker would have stayed with them, that they would have done well because they were starting to gain some ground, and they're probably right because they were definitely working hard enough. But, if I don't make it, whatever, I'm perfectly capable to go get a job.
It's not going to be from lack of working.
No.
Or lack of work ethic. I mean, I bet you already. I mean, and I'm not taking anything away from your previous jobs, but you're probably working way harder now than when you had a job where you worked for somebody else. You think?
Probably, yeah. I mean.
Considering the fact that you've got a wife that's having a baby, could be literally going into labor right now.
I mean, I don't want that to sound wrong, but obviously anybody's gonna be more motivated when like everything's when all the chips are on the table. I'm just saying you got a lot
going on top of things,
and that's hard to to quantify that a little bit. Like it's harder to work as hard as I want to having another baby. You know what I mean? Like when I have a baby, I'm gonna take 2 weeks off. Like I owe that to my baby, my wife, myself. All of us, I want us to have that time. So that's a bad time to really do that. You're starting up a business, but hopefully everybody's understanding of that. And I
feel like the whole mother and the child bonding thing is, but they've been doing that for 9 months, and old daddy has to just sit there. You can't feel the baby. I mean, you can, but the mother has an idea of how that baby is. I felt her kick. I was worried sick all the time. Like, I would literally have problems going to sleep.
Yeah.
Because I would just be like, I just want that baby out, breathing, and I want to be able to look at the baby and, okay, she's breathing, she's okay. Yeah. And I still get up on my 4-year-old kid some days, and I will sit there and watch her chest to make sure. I mean, I know that's such a, cliche, but...
No, if people...
I can't help it. It makes me emotional. I mean...
There are viewers out there who think you're a dang old wuss right now.
Well, what I'm trying to say is the father deserves that kind of bonding with the child. Like this whole, the man stays out the room and...
No.
Take your damn shirt off. Grab that baby. Put it against your bare chest.
What I think is...
that sounds so weird coming out. But
not at all.
It's not.
Not if you have a kid.
It's not. And you can need to build that same bond with your child that you're And you can, you know what I'm trying to say.
What I think is really cool about you is that you have a kind of a sensitivity that to me is almost like an emotional intelligence.
I'm way too emotional.
But no, it's okay.
I took my daughter to see Moana the other day. Every time emotional scene came on, I bit hook, line, and sinker. I was just emotional wreck. I was like, what's wrong with me?
Disney is so good.
I couldn't hold it back. Disney? I was like, gosh.
That's got to be a good movie.
My wife, cold as a rock, hard as a rock, emotionally, like, it's just the opposite of me. Man. Like, I'd have to, I don't know, something crazy sad would have to happen in front of her.
You complete each other. You all balance each other out.
I guess so.
That movie has to be really good. I'm a big fan of Hawaii. We took our honeymoon there.
But continue telling me how good I am.
So what I was trying to say though, no, seriously though, like you have a level of sensitivity that honestly, like to it kind of registers with me a little more. Like I'm gonna speak from my own personal standpoint. It registers with me a little more having my second kid. There are things that you know kind of come around. Like once you have the first kid, I guess I was so lost in the dark. Like I was still caught up in the fear of it maybe, and you know obviously the excitement and you know all the emotions that go together with that, but it's a little bit of a raging torrent. By the second time you've been down the rapids, you've been through the white waters, and you know a little more what to expect. And now that I think I'm a little coming into it with a little bit clearer of a perspective, like I feel the exact same way you do. Like to me it is just awe-inspiring and amazing how the woman can make the baby, everything that they do. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. My wife, every now and then, she can, you know, we'll be like waiting in the doctor's office or something, and she'll look at me and look down, and she's, you know, the baby's like moving around in there, and she just feels that.
Know that.
Yeah, she has to give me the visual cue, you know, and it's.
I'm not taking away from mothers because that is something special.
That's cool.
A mother and a child.
And my wife.
There is a difference.
My wife reminds me all the time that I don't understand and I will never know what it's like. And she's right, but that's not my fault. Like I feel bad, you know. I'd carry the baby if I could.
Like since having children, I can't see bad things happen to children.
Oh, I hear you.
Like the thought of it, things like that, it
definitely
makes me more emotionally, like want to cry like a little baby, but also get mad.
Yeah.
But anything with child, it just pulls at me like you wouldn't believe. And it wasn't. I mean, probably I was still emotional wreck before I had kids, but
it's definitely one of those things that people try to describe to you, but you don't know the feeling until you've done it. It's not that you're, you know, less humane or sympathetic or anything before you're a parent, but you don't quite have that, you know, you don't have the experience grasp on it, or you don't really understand until you have kids in it. And it changes you a little. It's like anything you have experience behind, it changes your perspective. How many times have any one of you listeners, you know, you've heard a saying so many times in your life, but it never really registered until that point, till that time when something happened to you, and all of a sudden you just had a moment of clarity with that saying that you've always heard all your whole life, you know, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get it. That is such a perfect epitome of what this is, and that's kind of the deal with parenting, but like literally times a million. Like there's so many things about.
It's so funny too, the things that are cliche that we call cliche, but everybody experiences them, hopefully. I mean, to some degree, when you got kids, all the same things.
Yeah.
But it might affect you differently, but you all go through an experience that, you know, like, that's just like this. Even I probably cried harder when Nora was born than I did with January. Nothing to take away from January. Like, but I have emotional stories on both of them, and I'm not going to sit here and share them on here. But I didn't know what to expect with January. But like sitting there with Nora, I knew the joy I was about to feel if everything went okay.
You had an emotional grasp.
And I mean, I'm sitting there, my chin is just... I couldn't hold it together. Like the respiratory nurse, these wonderful ladies knew me. I worked with them.
Thank God they knew you, right?
Yeah. And they're just like, get it together. Like, I've been in the room when children have been born. But, you know, like, I'm not desensitized to a point like how some nurses have to make themselves, like, not in a negative way, but They have to be like that.
There's
in a way.
Oh well, it's inevitable.
But I've been around
it's
more
inevitable.
stuff than some people, and I can't take it. I just shit.
There's a picture of me after my son was born, and I hope to God it's not on Facebook. I don't think it is. Maybe it did, but I mean, like, you talk about a sobbing, teary-eyed mess.
So
like
crazy.
I just, and I mean, it looked like something a lot worse, or it looked like something bad. Yeah, not good. But I mean, it really, and to our point, like, it's amazing what the women go through, because at that point, my wife had just been cut open. We had a cesarean, we had a C-section. What she went through to have that baby. First of all, thank God for modern science and medicine. It's amazing. But at that point, I had felt, me as the guy who sat in the rocking chair and took naps while she was in labor for 24 hours, I felt like I had scaled Mount Everest up cliffside with, no guards. I'd got to the top and battled a dragon with one arm and carried out a baby,
Mm-hmm.
And
she's like rolling her eyes.
yeah, and she's like, "You're a wuss." But so, I mean, just that feeling for me, like, I'm just glad. It makes you almost appreciate. I already had a big appreciation for single mothers because my mom was a single mother growing up, but like, women to do that on their own, that's just, to me, wrong and ridiculous.
And are successful.
Yeah.
And when I say success, I mean being a good parent.
Yeah. Again,
providing.
that's another one of those things that you don't know unless you experience. I can't even say that I know. I have an outside looking in appreciation, but it's amazing. Like, women really do have an insane amount of hurdles, like stuff that people don't want to talk about, stuff that, like, the glass ceiling. I know a lot of you maybe roll your eyes at that or whatever, but that's a thing. That's bottom line. I'm like Sam Harris. I look kind of general, global view, meta view. Like, statistically speaking, you can't argue it. Like, if you want to throw out some single cases, okay, cool. I'm sure somebody who's a CEO and she's a female. But statistically speaking, in the world as a whole as we know it, I don't know of any countries where men can't have a driver's license. I don't know of that anywhere. But
yeah.
So at times I kind of. I've probably made comment in the past where, like, it's insane how many things they have to cater to them. Like, they have special crisis centers, they have special doctors, special women's centers, special shopping, everything. But Jesus, they deserve it after all that. Like, being a single parent and giving birth and the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to be rude
for
about
a man
it.
or a woman. Being a single parent is probably...
Oh, yeah. That's actually...
Because there's days where me and Tuesday, like, we don't know how... We're like, what is happening? Our head's spinning off of our shoulders.
To me, to all you...
to have a...
Yeah.
To be single, and I've got a lot of friends and family that have raised their kids by themselves or with only one support group.
And thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I don't want to demean single fathers at all by any means. Like, this is a real statistic, but I don't want to look it up right now to detract from the conversation. But, like, I think single fathers amount to something like 18% of the world. Like, so like 80, I think it's at least 82% of single parents in the world are mothers. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the fact that there are fathers out there that will man up and raise the kid themselves, to me, that's almost it. It's definitely not more commendable, but thank God for the guys that will get up and do it, because obviously there's not a lot of them. Or I guess, to your point, though, there's also
depending on
there's
the
a
way
maternal
they were.
connection.
Well,
right?
yeah, I was about to say probably a lot of conditions on nature versus nurture on the man too. How nurturing was his mom? And I feel like I naturally make a good dad because of my mom and how good she took care of me. I feel like I use things I learned from her to care for my kids. Not by any means, I'm not bragging, but I'm saying what I do good.
You said do.
What I do that is I see is fair is because I've had a good mother.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
if I was just raised by my dad, not saying he's my hero, my dad is my hero and one of the people I've strived to be like my whole life.
But
it was just me and him,
but if
I
it,
would not.
if it was your dad and your brother, it would be kind of like being raised by a pack of wolves. You know,
it would be different.
In wooden walls, you know, instead of a cave. No,
that's about right.
No, you're absolutely right. And I just, again, it's something I get.
My dad didn't change a diaper until maybe, I don't know, 8 months ago or 9 months ago. First diaper he ever changed in his life.
That's funny, but in all fairness to your dad, didn't he?
And he had to, I think.
I'm going to tell all you listeners, I'm going to brag on old JC. He also built a log cabin from his hands with the trees that were on the land. Didn't he cut them down and basically kind of plane them out? And
yeah, he did every bit of it.
Like
made the doors, cabinets, everything. Lived in that house my whole life,
dude. For as a modest, I don't even want to call myself a carpenter when we're talking about something like
he
your
said
dad.
My dad, he's 73 years old. He said that's the hardest work he ever did in his life was building.
I can't imagine. It was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And
I never counted how many logs are in there, but he had to go through by hand and clean every log.
Your dad was literally like the guy on The Notebook. the guy on The Notebook that was like
he had a beard
planing that shit down by hand. That was your dad, and I feel like such a pussy because that was the hardest part of my life. When I built my house, and I had electric saws, and I ordered in the lumber. I told him, back it up here, you know, like.
That's crazy.
I mean, dude, for me, I wish I could have seen. I wish I had video cameras back then. I wish I could have seen a time lapse of what your dad did back then. When I was building my house, it was two different
eras.
I know.
No, two different. You know, that's what I'm trying to say. Like very masculine, and then a very nurturing mother.
Oh.
I think that's the difference. Like, I think that's what affects men raising children.
Yeah.
Not saying that a man can't be real masculine and come from a family where they know how to do things. What
do you mean, though? You think if your dad would have been left the babies on his own?
I think he did a fine job.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been the same, and it might have been rougher, but I think he loved it. You know, he would cared for us like
he would have thrown
the best he could have.
He wouldn't have thrown some dog food on for him and be like, there you go, kids. No, I'm just kidding.
We might ate a lot of bologna sandwiches, not ate like we did with my mom.
I kid. I hope your dad doesn't watch this.
So, how's your wife's baby self doing?
Pretty good, I guess. It's rough. Like that whole end. When you mean baby self, like.
Well, don't call her a she.
Oh, I see what you're lobbing up here.
Because then you would be transphobic.
All right. Why don't you
all right, so
unmuddy the waters for me here? Clarify this.
So I sent Eric a picture the other day, and it was a Twitter feed of a woman, and she said, if you're calling your baby by their pronounced gender before they are old enough to decide it on their own, you're transphobic. So you call the baby self, or you don't call it he or her or anything. You say baby self.
It's funny. This shows how much I've got going on because we talked about this like in text conversation. I forgot about it because I've got so much going on right now. But yeah, I told Bailey this would be a great thing to bring up in this podcast, referencing our last podcast. He'll read it, but the general idea is how can you refer to your baby's gender whenever that baby hasn't had the opportunity to self-identify their sexuality.
Gosh, we talk too much. All right, so this is from a woman called Bay, which is, for the record, I hate that. Bay is the Danish word for poop, by the way.
Really?
Bay is Danish. If you're calling your boyfriend or your girlfriend your Bay, it means poop. It means poop in Danish. It says, why do people think it's okay to call babies he or she? They can't speak yet, so they can't say their preferred gender. Please refer to them as baby self or toddler self until they can say their pronoun preference. Otherwise, you are transphobic.
Makes perfect sense to me. I mean, why would you look at the genitalia of the kid and call it one or the other? You don't want to offend that kid whenever they see this podcast.
That can't even wipe his own ass or her own ass. That's a bit ridiculous, and that's all I was trying to say on the last episode.
No, you got me. You got me. I was.
That's where I draw the line. Stuff like that. Come on. All right.
Yeah, I hear you.
Let's say you can't just go by what biology set aside for them, and then when they do decide, then you can go from there. You know, I mean.
I'm with you on that. I don't want to sound insensitive, but like.
You have to sometimes.
I guess so. Whenever the kid, until the kid. Okay, look at it this way, man. Like my wife has a condition through this pregnancy that, I hope she doesn't mind me saying that, but that in before modern times, she might likely have died from, and that's so many people out there, and like it's such a horrible thing. Anytime that happens, period, for the mother, the kid, whatever. But think about our mortality rate. Has gotten so much better, like modern science today. So where I'm going with this is
kids not dying from the rickets these days,
right? I mean, do you think that back then? I mean, it's again, this goes back to the fact that life has more value. We live longer. We're less likely to die during birth. The mother's less likely to die giving birth. Like life has more value now, or does it? Does it have less? I think it has more value because we appreciate so much more. It's the fact that we know that back then. So, do you think that people got as excited about having a baby? Like, do you think maybe they got a little less excited back then whenever, the chance of infant,
I think that so many more was factors. Like 30%. Well, not, yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, probably right. It's probably a lot easier nowadays to say, I hope we have a healthy baby, and you have a lot better chance now than then. But not only that, but the cost of a child was a factor. More than now. I'm not saying kids ain't expensive now, but like literally feeding a child back then.
Are you saying back then sometimes they'd cut their losses? Like, I mean, I'm sure that...
No, you were talking about the happiness of finding out you're having a kid.
Well, I agree, but it's not just necessarily the
how
happiness.
How are we going to keep feeding this child when I'm working?
I don't know. I guess where I'm going with that though more is like it almost plays into the whole abortion and life argument. Like these days, I feel like it has more weight because like could you imagine? It's hard for anybody anybody who'd watch this podcast. It's hard for anybody to wrap their mind around the idea that if that were a possibility, that you would just probably. I don't know. Okay, cultural norm for us, we do not announce that we're pregnant until after the first trimester because there's a higher risk of losing the baby, right?
You wait till you see the doctor.
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of a rule of thumb, kind of a cultural norm these days. And it exists because the idea that you don't want your loved ones, you don't want your friends and everyone else to get excited about having the baby until you're kind of in the clear. Well, back then you were probably a lot less in the clear. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't in the clear first trimester. So it really changed. I'm just wild speculation here. I was born in 1982. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what it was really like back then. All I can do is sit here and speculate. But I imagine that back then, your baby probably wasn't really something that you got as excited about. Like again, wild speculation. But I bet that we get as excited about our baby for second trimester as people maybe they wouldn't get that excited until the baby was born and a week old. Like, okay, hey, we got a baby. You know what I mean? Because it happened. It was something that people saw constantly. Mm-hmm. Your wife was pregnant, and everyone's just hoping that everything's gonna go right. There's so many things that can go wrong. Again, this all just goes to the amazement I have for a woman's ability to carry a child. The umbilical cord can be wrapped around the neck. You can have complications during pregnancy. The direction, it just matters the direction. To me, that's like a 1 in 4 chance that the baby's in it. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
You got a baby sitting here doing this, and all of a sudden it's just head out.
The thing's constantly kicking anyways. It could probably goes. It's like the zipper in there at the car, at the Ferris wheel or whatever. It's
always
like
ends up head out sometimes.
Yeah, but it bottom line, I hope I don't offend anybody by talking about that because I know a lot of people have experienced loss in that respect, and it just fascinates me. I'm amazed and I'm thankful every day. I hope to God that I'm not over the hill yet. I hope that I have a healthy baby, and I hope everything goes okay. Everyone prays for that, and just it's a scary idea. It was probably a lot scarier back then because it was a lot more real. And there are things that nowadays that my wife has a condition that we're keeping an eye on, but we're not nearly as worried as back then. Back then, it was something that
you wouldn't even know.
you probably wouldn't have known. You wouldn't have known until it was ugly. You know what I mean?
And I guess I'm going way farther back than the 80s, but...
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking
you would
1600s prior. You know what I mean?
Which it's amazing what they had as remedies and ways to check on the baby that actually were pretty sound.
That sound just totally medieval. Is that what you mean? Like the idea. I can't even remember what this is in reference to.
When they would know things just by how the woman felt. They would get it right. Like they would know when the woman needed to lay down for rest and.
Yeah,
I'm not saying,
but they also had a lot of pretty screw brain ideas.
Of course,
what was the?
But I'm just saying it's impressive the way that they were able to figure things out.
It was. I'm going to hoodwink any ideas that you had to discuss on this podcast, but I'll tell you one of the most fascinating things to me in life and what I learned in college and whatnot was we had a history of science class that talked about Copernicus and Ptolemy, and to catch up some of you who don't know who Ptolemy and Copernicus were. Ptolemy, back when there was a time when we used to look at the sky and we saw the stars, and they always seemed perfectly positioned and always in a perfectly stationary spot. And if you wanted to apply that to religion, back then you would think, well, God's world up there is completely unchanging. It's it's constrained by rules of the universe that it doesn't move. The only thing that are the only variables that exist are in this world. So they literally thought that any time that you saw like an asteroid or like a comet, shooting star, anything like that, they thought that it was inside the Earth's atmosphere. They thought that the sun, anything that moved, they thought it was inside the Earth's atmosphere, and the things that stood still were outside of it, because that was God's realm. It was unbreakable. It was unfathomable, basically unfallible. And then Copernicus comes along and he says, hey, look, this planetary movement, this idea that you have, the way these planets move, it doesn't quite add up mathematically. I'm noticing a few problems with it. And literally they want to kill this guy. Like, I think he made it through. I think Copernicus, I don't remember my history that well, but I think Copernicus made it through. I think basically because they just kind of passed him off as a quack. He published his stuff, and then Galileo backed him up and said, hey, Copernicus was right. Everything doesn't revolve around us. We revolve around the sun. And the Roman Inquisition wanted to put Galileo to death. Thank God Galileo had some friends in high places, and so he got out of it. But where I'm going with this is, like, given the set of evidence that we have at a certain given time, that's the only frame of reference you have at that point. People today can look back at Ptolemy's system of planetary movement and think he was a retard. but the truth is like, that guy was an amazing genius.
Just to
stare and think about it and mathematically work this stuff out. I mean, it's amazing.
I mean, how often do you really look at a problem that's not solved right now and think, well, if you just did this and you did that,
I'm going to tackle this one,
Yeah.
So
all
you
those
can't.
guys back, like a lot of these older philosophers and stuff, it was amazing the stuff they sit down and they thought about.
Oh yeah.
And you just think they're all a bunch of Neanderthals banging rocks together, but there were some dudes out there that were just geniuses.
I'm going to bring this up. We've talked about this in the past. The idea. One thing that bothered me going through college was whenever people think that that things like genetics and things like evolution and stuff like that had to be against the idea of God or the philosophy of God. I completely disagree with that. I have a hard time with anybody who gets defensive in the nature of hearing these things. Isaac Newton, I don't know if a lot of people may not know this, but Isaac Newton was one of the most devout Christians that ever existed. And this guy, to this day, came out with some of the most groundbreaking laws and ideas and theories.
Didn't he come up with the philosophy also? The everything that's good is good and everything that's bad is bad too. Didn't he?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Like, basically, it falls on one side of the fence, the other.
Like
There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
No, I don't think that was him.
I don't know philosophically. Like, I know everything. Like, he was a genius with mathematics. Here was the guy that during his time was so far ahead of science mathematically and objective thinking that nobody else could even understand him or have a conversation with him. But this guy felt like he was, everything he did, all of his work was in the name of proving that God was real. Like, here's a guy who, did the opposite of what a lot of people we know today. He dove into science so deep because he felt so, he had such a faith in God that he knew that someday he would prove, that there were certain laws in physics that would prove God to be right. Like, to me, it's a total different twist than what a lot of people think these days. A lot of people kind of don't like science and things because they think that Isaac Newton, whatever, like, well, I shouldn't say that, but Darwin, like, a lot of people think that Darwin is just kind of the Antichrist, and I don't know how this came about, because if you believe in God and his, omnipotent power, and, he could have made the dominoes fall any way he wanted to. Like, it's not disproving God at all. Yeah, the Bible ever literally said that anything happened in a certain one way. The interpretation is the Bible says that you should have a relationship with God. I can't believe we're getting into this conversation. I'm sorry, but
he came up with the Principia.
Yeah, that was when that was published. The Principia was just light years beyond mathematically. Like, he had to have, before calculus, I think,
one of the most important works in the history of science.
Yeah, you tell me facts and ground me, and I'll just tell you what I vaguely remember from 10 years of college 10 years ago. But they said that, like, what he proved mathematically didn't exist back then. It was basic, it was like calculus 2 that didn't exist before calculus 1. I mean, that guy was on a whole new level. And he was the most religious person you'd ever meet, and or so the historians have taught me at West Ark University. But
and if we ever figure out how to harness the power of gravity, which he discovered, it will be the greatest discovery known to man. I mean, if we can do gravity, it's just like that movie.
Well, okay, so you're talking about potential energy, basically, though.
Basically,
we harness potential energy now.
The fact that he saw something fall out of a tree and was like, "There's a reason that does that."
So let me also, let's catch up on some local, or not local at all, nowhere near local, but some recent news that's been happening. Have you heard about the EV drive or the EM drive, electromagnetic? Basically, the idea that, okay, first of all, they have a thrust device, a capability for thrust that is, by all physics, doesn't make any sense. Like, by all laws of physics, it should not produce thrust.
The law of you can't get something for nothing.
Yeah. For every
perpetual motion.
For every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. Mm-hmm. This one doesn't add up to that. But basically, what they do is they have a cone, and they're bouncing around electromagnetic waves in here, and it's somehow producing thrust. And so they had theories, and they had ideas, and they had proofs of concept here on Earth, and they said, okay, well, that doesn't mean much to us until you put it in space and then prove it to be true. And so I could be wrong on this. I hope somebody looks it up and comments on our YouTube or our Facebook. That'd be cool. I appreciate you if you're out there, fighting the good fight for knowledge and science. But I think that the jury's still out, but there was a leak recently that said that it came back positive. So I think NASA's still waiting for confirmation. It's still under peer review, things like that. But as I understand it, peer review is coming back, and it's positive. It's showing thrust, which is a huge deal. Like, up until this point, like, I guess the reason to put this, like, where this has real life application is the fact that we could have a nuclear spacecraft or something, nuclear powered spacecraft or something, that I'm not even sure, in space, producing this EM drive, pushing you through space. Basically, you don't have to worry about running out of fuel type deal. And it's a pretty big deal. It's pretty cool. Could mean interplanetary travel, to my understanding, it'd be pretty slow. I don't think it generates a whole lot of thrust at this point, but man, I don't know how we got on this. We went from babies to God to science and thrust. But
so what?
We go wherever we want. We're willy-nilly. We're all Willy Wonka out here.
But you know, one thing about what is sad about a lot of these great philosophers and mathematicians like Isaac Newton. Have you ever sat down and tried to read Principia?
No.
Because it's so boring.
Well, it's so hard.
Why doesn't that stuff find...
Do you know how much I'd have to apply myself to read the prologue? I don't know if
True.
there's a prologue or not, but Jesus Christ, True. I'd have to build a foundation that I never planned to accomplish in my life.
That's what I'm getting at. We get so far away in our basics. We can't even get... We have to go back to the basics and go even... That's beyond that, just to understand.
Yeah. I'm so thankful for the people who are out there who are trying.
And they're from way back, is what I'm trying to get at. You're saying,
and still to this day, we're trying to refute or deny, like what they said.
You would think we'd be able to go back and read whatever these guys wrote and be like,
hogwash, horse pucky.
I got a flat screen TV in my living room,
70 inches. What you know about that?
I'm gonna change the subject.
Okay, that's good.
No good segue.
No, that's a good point. That's a great point to change the subject because we just admitted we don't know anything compared to this guys from the 1800s.
So I went to this local coffee shop the other day, and I never go in. First off, coffee shops I guess I don't belong in. For one, I was in my work attire, and my work attire is pretty traditional. I'm in a tuck shirt. Just a polo, nothing special. I got work boots on and a good pair of jeans.
You're a clean cut guy.
Sturdy pair of jeans. Yeah, real clean cut. People automatically, by the way, just by my appearance, especially growing my beard out and stuff and having the size I have and
they
stuff.
They think they're going to get beat up.
They just look at me as not a welcoming look. Like when somebody looks at me, they give me... I can't explain it unless you've seen it out my own eyes.
No, I get it. I remember...
They just don't look at me like... Hi.
When we worked together,
they just so careful around me until they get to me talking to them, and they were like, "Oh, he's okay."
When we first worked together at Western Citizen, I remember that feeling. I can tell you all about it.
They're like, "I'm going to be very cautious of this person
until you talk to you and you understand."
And the coffee shop is times a million. The people in there,
they're a little more on guard.
Anyways, my wife likes these white chocolate mochas, iced. With no whipped cream, and then she got me.
What a guy! You know that order.
She got me drinking them, and I had to do some. I had a little bit of time, so the line was wrapped around the. I'm not going to say the name of the coffee shop, but it was local in Van Buren, and I go inside, and I say I'd like to have an iced, large. I'm not going venti, iced white chocolate mocha with no whipped cream. Writes all that on my cup. All right, simple as that. How hard is that?
Right.
You got that?
Right.
I didn't say anything crazy. I didn't go, I would like a non-fat soybean cows that only ate grass for 2 weeks, then was switched to corn.
Whip it with real hay, not a spoon, no metal. Yeah. Organic only.
Cambodian breast milk. I said I want an iced white chocolate mocha with no whipped cream.
Okay. No big deal.
Put my name on the cup, whatever. Guess what? I'm sitting there. They call my name. I walk up full of whipped cream. All right. I said, first off, I paid $5 for this drink. And then I tipped them $1 before they even made the product. And that gets me too. Expecting me to tip before you even complete your service. But I did it anyways on good faith. Because I know what it's like working in the food industry.
That's fundamentally wrong. I hope this podcast gets that changed. Because... That the whole idea of tipping and the whole
before service is rendered
it makes no sense at all. First of all,
anyways, I tipped them just $1, but for $5, that's pretty good return. All right, but that doesn't matter. But sure enough, my drink had whipped cream in it. I said, "Man, I'm sorry, and for one thing, I shouldn't be apologizing."
But I know you're asshole. But you're still polite about it. I know.
I was. I said, "Man, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be in pain." But I was like, I asked for no whipped cream. He goes, "Oh, you did, didn't you? It's right there on the cup." And he just takes my lid off in the sink, tips it a little bit, and just starts scraping it off with my lid. He's dipping my lid in the cup. Half of my ice and half of my coffee that I paid $5 for is pouring in the sink. Everybody's watching him. The guy that made my coffee is just like, "Yeah, I did that." He's like, "Is that okay?" He's just got a dripping lid in his hand. puts it. I was like,
Back-
sure. And I took my cup,
Hold on.
just walked right out.
Back it up for a minute. Do you think the guy was being sarcastic? Like,
No, he wasn't doing it as sarcastic as I am now. But I just thought it was ridiculous that I'm sitting there, just something as simple as a coffee that cost me $5.
it's
To me, that's a lot for a liquid drink.
I feel like the margins
That
on
was
coffee
this big.
have to be pretty good. They've got some
Milk,
good
sugar,
margins.
and coffee is basically what I paid $5
And water.
for. And
Right,
water.
Yeah.
And I lost half of the water through the ice when he poured it out into the sink. He's like, "Is this all right?"
You okay now, bro? You mad at me, bro?
Sure, I took it, whatever. But it got me so thinking, the customer's never right anymore. We're never right. If I would have made us think about that, if I would have threw a fit and just, no, that's not okay. I want a new coffee. Like, they would have been thinking, what a jerk. This guy's being such a jerk.
How dare
I got
he
almost all
want-
that whipped cream off of that coffee.
How dare he want what he wanted?
And that is also, as far as this coffee shop goes, that is completely being skeptical. I might have said,
And it's
no,
mo-
that's not okay. And that guy might have said, no problem.
Yeah.
But my idea is, why do I have to be like that? Why do I have to, and why...
Well, you're
Everywhere you go is like, you are the bad guy. I find myself as a customer apologizing to the employees, and that might be my own...
okay. Well, I agree with you, Bigly. Like,
Yeah.
I think you see this a lot, but where does that come from? Like, okay, so this employee, he's your customer number 115 for him that day or whatever, and maybe he's just so busy and he's looking at that long line that's going around the coffee shop, and he is so concerned about doing a good job that, like, order number 115 he got wrong, and he was like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right, just did 115 of them right, but I'm so
Didn't even
sorry
get a
that
spoon, though.
I'm
He
so
used
sorry
my
I
lid.
screwed up. No, I hear you, but you're absolutely right. But do you think this comes from kind of, I don't want to say, like, maybe like an overpopulation type thing? Like, do you think this is literally, it's not just an isolated case where you were at this coffee shop? You just said that you find yourself apologizing almost everywhere you go. It's not a specific, it's not a, we're not singling out any local coffee shop, but I agree with you. I apologize, but maybe, like, I mean, I have a lot of years in the hospitality industry, but maybe I do it out of, like, hey, I get it, you're gonna screw up sometimes, I did too, but it's almost like we're almost so removed from the killing of the cow and putting it on the plate that it's a different, you know what I mean, like it's a different ordeal these days. Basically, service industry, you're very removed. We simplify tasks down to one single thing. This person is supposed to keep your drink filled, and they're supposed to bring you your food. Or this person's supposed to, even simpler, make you a coffee the way they wrote it on a cup. I mean, it couldn't be more simple than that, right?
Right.
But regardless, if you do it X amount of times in one day,
Mm-hmm.
statistically speaking, I don't care. Everybody out there, like, I've heard so many arguments of people will post, they're the one person who got something, their order wrong at Burger King your way right away.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll put, this guy wants $15 an hour, and they'll sarcastically, or not even sarcastically, but hatefully, demean the idea. But statistically
I think
speaking,
I've thought that before.
there's nobody out there who wouldn't screw up working in fast food. I don't care who you are. I've never met anybody who didn't screw up working fast food. That was my first job, was fast food. I also, when I worked at UPS, I was in charge of loading three trucks, 3 mere trucks. It was no big deal. It was they couldn't have made it more simple for me. They had all these packages coming down a conveyor belt, and anytime I saw these packages labeled with one of 3 labels that belonged to my truck, I put that package in my truck where it belongs. I mean, to me, I feel like I should be able to get 100% on this one. They couldn't have made it more easy for me. But sure enough, I had misloads. I'd have the supervisor come back to me and say, Eric, we had a misload. This guy was in Mountainburg with this package that was supposed to go down to Towson Avenue. We can't have this, And it struck me. I already felt like this was a layup. I should have got 100%. So I'd try even harder the next day. And no matter how hard I tried, maybe I'm too dense or something. But I never ever got I won't say never ever. There were probably days that maybe I got it perfect. But they didn't let me know about those. They let me know about all the days when I didn't get it perfect. But But I guess like
Well, no, because that's expected. You're supposed to get it perfect.
you say that, but absolutely not. That's the reason all these companies have this stuff built in. My wife is a manager at Chili's, and they understand that it's going to happen sometimes, and so they basically have, they have a compensation, thing. But basically, this guy, maybe the guy at the coffee shop should have offered you free coffee, admitted his mistake. Maybe he should have been like, you're right. Maybe he was under a lot of pressure, and maybe he wasn't himself, or maybe he's an asshole. I don't know the guy, but
he seemed really nice.
Maybe he should have said, "Dude, you're right. Damn, I know you paid a lot for these beans and water. Have a coffee on me, like legitimately. I'm serious.
I didn't want a coffee for free. I just wanted the coffee I paid for.
No, but I'm serious though. Like the companies should they should and they do expect that
total quality management.
Well, yeah, but it's hard to do when your employee is making...
Quality is a quantifiable, measurable thing.
It is most of the time, as long as you get the feedback back, right?
Right.
As long as that information comes back to you. That's one thing I respect more than anything out of companies these days. The companies that legitimately want to hear your gripes. The companies that want to hear feedback to me are good companies. Mm-hmm. They care about the negatives and they want to hear back and they want to try to improve. There are a lot of companies that I know out there that
there's some that really impress me, like even on like Facebook posts when you like make a complaint, like they get on there like, we are so sorry, we will do our best to fix this. I'm like, dude, they are so big, they could be jerks to every single person on this post
and still be in business.
Yeah.
Well, and to me that says a lot, and it speaks to people, it speaks to the public. This is where capitalism is a beautiful system. Like there are people out there who do a level of business where there's a level of arrogance that exists, and it's almost. I'm going to say that I want to try to qualify this a little bit. There's a level of arrogance that exists sometimes when you're really good at your job. That kind of should exist. You know you're good at your job. You know you do a good job. So you don't want to hear about it. But. That to me that's wrong because again there is always human error. You can't expect to always be perfect. It doesn't matter if you're a master carpenter. It doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist monk that has been brewing beer your whole life. Like
I just feel like, and not saying that I've given my all at every job I've ever had, but one thing, I've never been above the job I was doing.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially when it came to dealing with the outside people, the customers. And not many employees I've had have put me out on the front line. But when I was, to me, I felt like it was important to be proud of the company I work for and do a good job.
But we've already established though that you're a very special case in the in the global scheme of humanity. Like you typically care a little more.
My mom tells
me. I mean, you try harder because you care. Like you have a level of sensitivity that we wish everybody did in the hospitality, side of things. But
almost the same week, I went to a local hardware store. I had to buy a new refrigerator, and the guy that was working in the appliance, he was the most helpful dude. Talk about a guy who was you go to these hardware places. And some of them know what they're doing. Some of them don't know anything. But this dude was good. Hey, and I was like, man, I'm on the fence about this fridge and this fridge. I was like, could you give me, help me out? Which one's better? He's like, I absolutely can. And he just was like, this is this. Listen, he made us buy the thing. And I was like, impressed. I was like, more people need to be like you, man.
Well, hey, we won't throw the bad to the wolves, but let's give this guy some credit. Where was it?
At Lowe's. His name's Sammy. Yeah,
nice.
Van Buren. Go there.
Nice.
Dude knows what he's doing. Like, I remembered his name.
That's awesome. There was a guy.
And people I talked to up front, I was like, that dude, Sammy back there, man, I was like, really helpful. Like,
that's awesome.
It's a stressful thing. We bought a refrigerator. I don't know about most people, but to my family, that is a huge expense.
So let me say two things. For one, it's funny because we had a phenomenal experience with a guy named Robert in cabinets at Van Buren and Lowe's. The guy did an amazing job. Like the guy, genuinely cared, followed up. Like, and even into our discussion here, the guy had a few things fall through the cracks, but he was like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, I forgot about you. I needed to call you on this." I appreciate that so much. It fell through the cracks. I don't even care anymore. I'm not even angry. A whole wheel of cheese. No, but so the other side of that though is like, that's Lowe's. It's corporate. But I had a guy I don't personally like to shop at Jaeger's a whole lot. Just I've had some bad experiences. I won't even go into that. I don't want to throw anybody on the bus, but man, there was a guy in the paint department today that I dealt with at Jaeger's on Rogers, and I wish I knew his name. But man, long-haired guy, man, that guy. Oh, I've never he had a vibe.
Good.
Yeah, he genuinely cared to the point where I felt like I was kind of rambling on just to be nice to this guy, and he entertained it. He was like, yeah, man, yeah, you want a good sprayer, don't you? And I was like, you don't care about the sprayer, but thank you for saying that and agreeing with me. That's cool.
It's not funny how satisfying some things like that can be because
it speaks volumes.
But I think that also says how we go into places with such negative attitudes.
Okay, so
did you not have a little bit like, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to know more about paint than this guy has ever known
Ron
about
Swanson.
paint?
I know more than you. Yeah, I do feel Ron Swanson in there sometimes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, okay, that's a beauty. Do you think we're better off today than we were when it was only word of mouth? I'm shopping for like a pressure washer right now and an airless sprayer, and when I do, I'm looking at possibly spending a lot of money up front. And I can pull up on my smartphone reviews from 137 people who bought this sprayer, and they can tell me their good and bad experiences, and I can see that the bad experiences were only 12%, and this is what was wrong, and this is what might happen. Do you think we make better decisions today based on the fact that, like, I can be in Lowe's, I can pull something up, I see the price they have, I see the price Amazon's offering, I can call Bob Settle down on Towson, and I can see what they're offering it. Like, do you think we make better decisions now, or do you think it's really because I feel like
that probably holds them to another level of quality too?
Well, you say that, but I spent so much time doing that sometimes you get almost confused. Sometimes
it'll make you second guess yourself.
You're weighing out too many pros and cons. You have so much information, you don't know what to base it on.
That webcam took me that long. It took me like 3 days. And it was going to be for free. I had a gift card, but I could not decide because I'm reading all these things and people are like, it's okay, it's great, but it does this, and then I'm like, well, I don't want it to do that. I don't know. I see what you're saying, but I think it honestly could hold. I'm gonna
post that later.
I think it could honestly hold the company to a greater standard of quality. Because things like Facebook, Twitter, it's such a powerful thing. It's done it to McDonald's. Look at McDonald's. These poor saps they gotta have calories on each one of their menu items.
They have to tell you that the coffee's hot.
You
wouldn't have known that otherwise.
King, they're all selling the same crap, but McDonald's caught a bad rap for being bad quality, but none of the other places catch a rap like McDonald's, and I don't eat at McDonald's a lot, but I have nothing against them, and I feel bad that just because they're super successful, that they had to be held to such a level where these other places that probably do just as good a business.
But doesn't, and I agree with you. I mean, just initial service value, I think it's kind of unfair. But doesn't that kind of come with the whole,
cost me $7 for a Big Mac now.
Heavy is the head. Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that McDonald's is.
But they might also be holding them to a higher level of quality. Like McDonald's might actually be a lot better than it was 20 years ago.
It probably should. It probably should be that way. The fact that they serve so many people there. I'll tell you, like we learned in business school that Wendy's, for instance, their business model is based around the fact that McDonald's spends millions of dollars to do. To do studies, basically, to show where the best location for McDonald's is, right? So they spend millions of dollars. They have millions of dollars for people to research locations because it's location. Mm-hmm. And what Wendy's did is they were like, hey, we're going to save some bucks. They're already spending the millions. Let's just put in Wendy's wherever they put in a McDonald's. Like we'll put in one within, a two block radius.
Smart.
And so they're kind of... by the way, I like Wendy's probably as much or more than McDonald's. Like, you can't argue McDonald's fries; they're really good. Mm-hmm. But I love Wendy's. I like, maybe it's the old you like to root for the underdog type thing, but they kind of circumvented that. They found a more efficient way they were like, I mean, that's, to me, it's kind of smart business, you know. Sometimes what is smart business isn't fair. It isn't fair at all. Like and this kind of segues
like
me into
having
something.
only one Chick-fil-A in Fort Smith and nowhere else
when
around.
that Chick-fil-A can have 2 lanes literally going out onto the road.
They
and
could
there's
have.
not
They
another
could
one.
build a Chick-fil-A,
But isn't that
right by that Chick-fil-A?
Yeah,
like
and
exactly
they both be just
next door
crazy
neighbor.
busy.
Yeah.
But isn't that for religious reasons?
What?
In a way, you know that in order to open a Chick-fil-A.
Oh, by the way, newsflash for all you local Van Buren, where Frank's is, they're putting in a Chick-fil-A.
Whoop whoop!
Yeah, and Frank's is moving by Taco Bell.
I'm really excited about
and
that.
we're also getting an Aldi's.
Where's Aldi's going to be?
Aldi's is going to be by the Tractor Supply,
That's
right
exciting.
there where that church
I
is.
see where they're building that. Yeah,
and
the
more to come.
Waffle House is moving
My wife will eat Waffle House again. We went there one time
because it'll be a new location. So
we went to this one time, and there were bugs crawling on our table.
Yeah,
and she would never go back. But I love Waffle House. I don't care. I'll go eat there right now if you want to go.
me too. Let's drink some more.
We could end ISIS tomorrow. You get them guys and tie them up.
Take them into Waffle House.
Cook up an all-star breakfast in front of their faces. They tell you whatever you want to know.
They would ask themselves, they're like, what are we doing? These people have Waffle Houses and we're dressed like genies.
Yeah. Start scoot the bacon over and cook the hash browns in the bacon grease. They tell you whatever they want to know. Even Muslim or not.
So tell me this though, after they clean up the Waffle House, after they get rid of,
they're going to tear it down to
Are
nothing.
Do we know what's happening there? What's going to be in that? That's a prime location. Waffle House
exactly.
Gave up
they're not
a good
going
spot.
to give that. They're not going to use that building. They're going to tear that building down and they're going to sell it to a big corporation
Probably
for something stupid.
They'll make a profit on that. Hey, other local news. Did you hear about? You probably didn't read up on this, but I mentioned it earlier in the week. Somebody went around campus UAFS and posted a bunch of. Arguably, there were a lot of comments when I read on Channel 5 Facebook.
I saw where UFAS. See, I'm going to school, and so I get the newsletters, and all I got was saying that these newsletters that are being found around the campus do not hold the same views
as the
but
campus.
They wouldn't say what they said.
Well, they weren't endorsed. So I don't. For any listeners out there, all 7 of you, there is a policy that the university holds that. It's actually pretty strict policy, like a pretty strict process. In order to get any kind of flyer, any kind of announcement or anything posted at the university, you have to go through some channels, you have to get approval, the whole 9 yards. Mm-hmm. Well, these people did not do that, and they posted some, arguably, I'm not going to take either side of this, but I'm going to say that there are
highly debatable
critics who say that it was very racist and things that were very kind of white power-ish type things. And in the comments on Facebook, on Channel 5, there were a lot of people who were backing him up and be like, hey, you call this racist, but what if it was a Black Lives Matter poster? Would you call it racist then? And so, anyways, if you want to read some interesting comments on a Facebook feed... I
still think that UFAS wouldn't allow it because...
They didn't allow it. They never did. And that's why you got an email that said this is not the view.
I'm saying other way around.
Black Lives Matter?
I feel like they wouldn't have took a stand either way because they...
Well, they wouldn't have took a stand, but they also...
Well, I'm just saying to keep from choosing a side.
Do you think that they have more of a sensitivity to minorities, being that they have to be equal and opportunity? Like, don't you think they might be a little more partial to let somebody from Black Lives Matter, for instance, post... First of all, I don't think Black Lives Matter would post anything. This seemed pretty... I mean, I don't care which way you want to spin it. You read it, it was a little inflammatory. Like, I don't care how you... I'm sure people will tell me otherwise, hopefully in the comments, because I'd love to hear some rebuttals. But I don't see it happening, and it could happen because there are individuals in any group that don't represent the organizational,
I
mission
think
statement.
that anything like that would have to go through some kind of review, and I think if it sparked any kind of controversy,
even if it was Black Lives Matter and they would feel more prone to approve it. Even if they wouldn't, I think if it said anything like these posters do, I think they'd be like, "Oh, hey, we'll help you out, but not like this. You better
Why
go
don't
back
you
to the drawing board on this one. You know,
Yeah.
it was pretty brutal. But anything else local? What's going on? We mentioned lots of restaurants. We got a children's hospital going up in Northwest Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal. Thank you, Tyson, our local largest meat producer in the world, for ponying up a bunch of cash on that.
Everybody knows somebody that has to go to Children's in Little Rock.
Yeah.
I will say this about Children's in Little Rock. I never had anybody go there that was part of, that had something wrong, but I've went up there for my work before.
We did.
What an amazing hospital.
Connor had surgery there when he was less than a year old.
How they do it, man. How those workers do that, man.
I can't imagine that if you get on Facebook and look at their feedback, it's got to be like they're at least 4.8, 4.9, you know what I mean? Like they're stand up, just doing a great job, and thank you for that. Hey, one more last thing I want to bring up, and this is something that's really salient to me and Lindsay, and you know that right now we're in a child care crisis, or not child care, but DHS, basically like a foster home. Like, we're in a crisis here in Arkansas. And
Fort Smith is the worst in the state.
This isn't just waving a flag. Like, this is legitimate. When the last company that I worked for, I went to a Springdale Chamber of Commerce meeting. Actually, this was at there was a different networking meeting I went to, and one of the ladies was with DHS up there, and that day before the meeting, she's like, "Oh man," she's like, "I barely slept," and I was like, "Well, what's up?" And she said, "I had to place 14 kids last night. Mm-hmm. Like, in one night, I had to find 14 homes for kids to temporarily stay the night in, so I could go home and sleep." I mean, could you imagine that?
Mm-mm. I had a friend, my wife and I's friend, she worked in it for like 6 months maybe, or maybe less than that. Fort Smith is the worst in the state.
Yeah, they have the highest turnover, which doesn't surprise. It shouldn't surprise anybody. We're an industrial region down here, and we're blue collar. It is sad. It's really sad. So Lindsay and I hope to someday. Don't take me to the bank on this, but hopefully, if we ever get on our feet good enough, we want to try to register maybe and try to become a temporary housing solution where hopefully a kid can stay the night here until they find their next place or whatever. You know what that leads into is typically you're going to end up getting attached or something. So, but anyways, that's an idea that we've tossed around. We don't know if we'll ever follow through on that, but it's something that a lot of people need to be thinking about, especially if you feel like you have a decent place to provide, it's not easy. That's the reason we have a crisis, because it's it's pretty rigorous. It's not like just anybody can do this. You know what I mean? So, anyways, hopefully that gets better, because I had a friend who went in and out of foster care, going to school in Alma, and I kid you not, I went to her where she was staying up in Natural Dam, and I swear to God, these people were running a farm on child labor. Basically, they're getting paid to have the kids stay there. And they also had, 7 kids
doing it for all the wrong
that
reasons.
all had chores. You had to feed the pigs. You had to, they weren't milking cows. I don't know, but whatever they had to do up there. There were 7 kids they were getting paid to have, and they were running a farm up there as they ran it out. And anyways, so yeah, not to bring anybody down, but just it's local. It is what it is. So,
but we're getting a Chick-fil-A in Van Buren.
I love you, Bailey.
All right, man. Well, we gotta get off here.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Hope that was enough for you. This is enough for us.
And if you like watching these, why don't you subscribe?
Yeah, why don't you see the next one? Maybe we'll...
I'm looking at you, wife.
I don't want you to subscribe, wife. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, tune in next week. We might have a week off so Eric can have a baby.
Yeah.
And if not, we'll see you next week.
Good times.